Good morning, good day, or good evening. My name is Eli Rowe, and this is the Middle Aged Witch Podcast. Hello, and blessed Beltane. I sincerely hope that everyone had a beautiful Sabbath, and I hope that we were all able to find some peace and some joy. It's such a lovely Sabbath, one of my favorites, because of the hopefulness and the possibilities that it represents. Today we are going to talk about portals. And this is a topic that was suggested by a listener, and I do apologize because I can't remember the name of the witch. I should have written it down. I usually do, but I dropped the ball on that one. This is not a topic that I've covered before per se. However, we did speak about the power of liminal spaces in a past episode, and there is so much crossover there. There's a lot of overlap when we talk about portals and when we talk about liminal spaces. We might even say that they are one and the same. And so if some of this information sounds familiar, it's because I'm literally plagiarizing myself. But it is what it is. That episode was like maybe 2.5 years ago. Something like that. But, we can reheat some of those leftovers. Anyway, portals. What are they? How do we use them? Why are they significant? Well, a portal is a doorway. It's a gate. For our purposes, it's an opening, either pre-existing or one that we create that allows us, as witches, to cross over to varying degrees between this plane, this dimension, and another. When we meditate, when we perform divination, when we use Ouija boards, when we pray, we are creating an opening between this reality, this existence, and another plane, or another reality, or another existence. And we're using this opening to get answers, or to commune with deceased loved ones, to petition a deity for blessings, to get a glimpse of possible future outcomes, and for many other purposes. One portal that's relatively easy to use is that space between being asleep and being awake. I've mentioned a book before on this program called The Silva Mind Control Method. It's by Jose Silva. It's a very easy read. It's not a long book. It's like this big. And I recommend it to everyone. It's a method that was developed by Jose Silva to help people in all kinds of ways. Maybe they want to break bad habits, to develop ESP, to learn astral travel, whatever the case may be. And it's all done in that liminal space by utilizing the portal that exists between the waking world and the dream world, between sleep and wakefulness. And it's called the theta state of consciousness. And if you're not interested in reading the book, you can find about 100 guided meditations for taking yourself to the theta state, and about 1,000 online guides for learning to put yourself in theta. In the astral travel episode, we talked at length about the method for doing this, so I'm not going to rehash all of that, but this is portal magic. This is liminal magic. Also, it bears repeating again that I kept referencing alpha state in that episode because that's what happens when I rely on my memory and I don't follow my notes. But what I meant to say was theta state. So if you go and listen to that episode, and I will link it in the show notes, anytime you hear me say alpha, I meant to say theta. But this is the state of consciousness where the mind can really expand. Areas of consciousness such as creativity, intuition, premonition, manifestation, we're able to stretch those limits in theta state. And so being able to go into this level of consciousness at will is a really powerful tool. It does take a lot of practice, and you're going to fall asleep over and over and over again trying to get there, but it is absolutely worth the effort. But there are other kinds of magic that we can do in liminal spaces with those portals. Not just in the metaphorical liminal spaces, but in literal doorways, entrances, thresholds, train stations, airports, hotels, crossroads, highways, real places that exist in the world that are liminal spaces. We can go to these places to perform portal magic. This kind of magic is magic that we can do to support ourselves when we are approaching any kind of transition in life, when we want to transcend to another level. So, if we're trying to advance our careers, or if we're moving into a new field altogether, or if we're thinking of pursuing a new hobby or learning a new skill, or if we're furthering our education, or if we're looking to start a new relationship or move an existing relationship to a new phase, if we're trying to release old patterns of behavior or to establish new, healthier patterns, if we are experiencing changes in our health, all of these issues can be supported by performing our magic at these doorways, in these portals, in these liminal spaces. But what does that mean for us? Well, it means that we can incorporate these existing physical liminal spaces into the execution of our spell work. As an example, a few years back, I had to do a banishing. There was a person who needed to go away. And I got all of my elements together for a banishing spell, and I had this individual's personal concern. I believe I used their hair. And I had my black salt, I had my banishing oil, I had my cayenne pepper, my stinging nettle, nightshade, belladonna, and I put together my spell, and I worked it during the waning moon, which is a liminal space of its own. It is a portal, and then I buried it at a crossroads. Doing that part of the spell, burying it at the crossroads, it may not have been strictly necessary to get a decent result, but it also did imbue that work with the movement and the restlessness of a crossroads. It used that portal for my purpose. I wanted this person to make moves. I wanted them to go. And guess what? They left in a permanent way. They didn't die. It's not that kind of permanence, but they're gone. They're out of my life for good, and they're not coming back. And I was able to utilize that portal to expand, to magnify the results that I wanted. Now, another kind of portal or liminal space that bears mentioning are places where fae are found, especially wilderness spaces and abandoned properties that have become kind of overgrown. So that's something to keep in mind when you're performing work in these places, because you might run up against these entities, so please be respectful of their space. And B, this is a great place to find fae if that's what you're into. Be careful though. I actually have a story, and I've told it before, but one night several years ago, maybe at this point it's been 7 years, my oldest and I we were walking the dogs together. It was like 9 p.m. It was a really warm night, and we took the boys out to this really great field that's near our house, and we let them run around. And so it was a routine. We did this walk several nights a week. We would walk them out to this field that was nearby, walk around the entire perimeter of the field. This was several dozen acres, and leash them back up, bring them back into the neighborhood, and walk them home. And there is a feeling out in that field. This field is very open. It's very flat. To the west of the field is an aqueduct that's running with water all year round. On the other side, the east side of that field, is an almond orchard. And this field, and to the north side of this field is a highway. So surrounded on all sides, very liminal spaces. This field is zoned for commercial use, but it has not been developed yet. So as far as being a portal and a liminal space, it hits every single mark. It's waiting to be turned into a shitty strip mall, but we've been here 9 years now, and they still have not broken ground on this. But it's got coyotes, ground squirrels, garter snakes, field mice, hawks, owls, prairie dogs. There are a lot of wildflowers that grow in the spring. It's got, the flowing water. It's got this sort of wildness, but it's on the verge of becoming something entirely other. And I tell you, there are fae there. So my daughter and I were walking our dogs. We're headed home from that field one evening after this nice long walk. We're having a conversation. It's really nice. We leave the field, and the next thing we know, we're like 3 city blocks down the road somehow, and it feels like it happened in an instant. We completely overshot the street that we should have turned on, the street that would have taken us into our little neighborhood, into our house, and we ended up about a quarter mile further down the road in the wrong direction, and we had lost about 20 minutes. It doesn't take 20 minutes to walk a quarter mile, but we went from point A to point B, that was a quarter mile away, and we had lost 20 minutes. 1 minute we're walking, we're talking, we've got these dogs on the leashes, and then suddenly we stop and we look around and we are nowhere near where we needed to be, nowhere near where we should have been. It was genuinely like waking up from sleepwalking or something with no idea how we got there. It was such an eerie feeling. And we still talk about it sometimes. Neither of us has a clue what happened, but I believe with all my heart that for one reason or another we were diverted. I think that this field is a liminal space that's jealously guarded by some fae, and I think that for whatever reason we weren't wanted there that night. But that's a great field for working magic. My kids have done spells there. It's a great place for divination, using a Ouija board, talking to spirits, because it exists outside of boundaries. It's not a natural meadow, but it's not a developed property either. It's not any one thing, and so it's able to be many things. And that's the essence of a liminal space. That's what makes a portal. And that's why it's so conducive to magic. It allows for possibility and magnification. It does not have limits, and so it does not impose limits. So when we shuffle those tarot decks, we are opening portals. When we kneel at our ancestor altars, we are opening portals. When we cast a circle, when we invoke a deity, when we sit quietly in a meadow, when we meditate, when we cast a spell, when we visit a haunted location, any time that we open ourselves to any sort of natural influence at all, we are opening a portal, or we are availing ourselves of existing portals. This is where magic happens. It's in those liminal spaces, and that's special. And the more that we perform this kind of work, the easier and the more fluidly we will be able to move between these realities, these dimensions. As witches, we walk a tightrope between worlds, between the natural and the supernatural. And it's a privilege, it's a responsibility. So I hope this was helpful, and I hope that you'll join me next week when we talk about cord cuttings. My name is Eli Rowe, and this has been the Middle-Aged Witch Podcast. May our troubles be less and our blessings be more, and nothing but happiness come through our door. The
information presented is the author's opinion and does not constitute any health or medical advice. The content of this podcast is for informational and entertainment purposes only and is not intended to diagnose, treat, cure, or prevent any condition or disease. Please seek advice from your healthcare provider for your personal health concerns.